Welcome to the new episode of the podcast series Life on Tatami, a podcast series about martial arts and the lifestyle. Thank you for listening to us. If you like what you are hearing, you can find us on our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Or you can directly contact us through our email on podcast@lifeontatami.sk. So thank you for listening and enjoy. In today's episode, we're going to talk about belt ranks, or OBI in Japanese. Now, how these ranks ever begin to exist? Well, it is known that the first martial art that started to use ranks was judo, created by Jigoro Kano. And the first belts were introduced in late 19th century, early 20th century, and they did not have the variety that we know today, and they do not have the colors that are known today. You know, the structure, the style. This all evolved later on due to the introduction of the judogi, which is the kimono that is used for judo. And then when you have a system that is growing and you have more and more sports events, you have to find new ways and new solutions. Therefore, more and more belts were added over time. Now, why belts are still necessary today after 100 years or so, it is the same reason why it was before. And I will get to that reason later on. I just want to quickly go over the basics regarding the belts. Now, most of you might be familiar with two major belts, the white belt and the black belt. The white belt one, whenever you start a martial art that is using belt system, it might be modern, traditional, it might be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it might be traditional Jiu-Jitsu, it might be judo, karate, aikido, whatever. And once they have students who wear budogis, respective to the style that they use or style that they do, they usually wear white. I say usually because there might be some exceptions, because belts are used not only in Japanese martial arts but also in Korean, also in mix of Japanese and American and Chinese like Kempo, and others as well. So if you see someone wearing a belt, it doesn't necessarily mean that they do Japanese martial art or a Japanese traditional martial art. But let's put that aside. Now, those two, as I said, the most common and known are the white belt and black belt. Why is that? White belt is the first one that you come in contact with when you are training. When you are the one who's training. When you, for example, are buying your kid or yourself a new gi, you usually can find a pack, right? So you have the jacket, you have the trousers, and you have the belt with it, as a bundle, let's say. So I have tons of white belts at home that I don't use anymore. I have only one that I use when I go and visit a new school, or I go and visit some style that I'm not otherwise certified in, and therefore out of respect I wear my white belt. But I have only one that I usually have with me wherever I go on a seminar or a different school. Otherwise I just pile white belts and that's it. Now, the second one that is most known is the black belt, because there is a black belt magazine. Chuck Norris is a black belt. There are other known people who are black belts, and this black belt is how to put it, a symbol of mastery. Now, I will talk specifically about black belts as master degrees in martial arts, and why they differ, why there are so many, how different styles approach it, and what are the downsides. And I will talk about one thing that I have come across, and this is a teaser for it, that I came across in Slovakia especially. We call it the black belt syndrome, but I will talk about it in the next episode. Right now I want to focus more on the basics. So let's get back to the belts themselves. In Japanese, the original belts, they were derived out of the belts that were worn in traditional garments. In kimono, you had a belt of various knots, various styles, various materials, various widths and lengths and whatever. Now, the belts that were originally used were black belts only, or white, and that was it. So, as I said before, there was no really some middle ground. Before the belts were introduced, there was a system of certifying your students. And if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around, you had 5 levels that you could be certified within a certain martial art. But you only got the certification. There was no visible representation of the rank that you had. So what happened was that once Jigoro Kano created judo out of jiu-jitsu in order to promote healthy lifestyle, martial arts, and sportsmanship, rather than as jiu-jitsu was at that time considered to be martial art used by thugs, because there had been a lot of people in Japan that had been involved in fights, or they might have been involved in the local, let's say, mafia, yakuza, and they had been using jiu-jitsu. So it was more connected with that connotation of fighting, of killing each other, of being a bad guy. So he created judo. Now, Jigoro Kano was a teacher, and in Japan there was used for various disciplines, various ways how to differentiate between different levels of the student by looking at them. So you have 2 kids, they might be, both be on a swimming team. One is more advanced than the other. One had a different distinctive color that he wore, and the other one had a distinctive color for his level. So he used this kind of system, and over the years it transformed to what we do now, right? So in most martial arts that I have come across that originated in Japan, they used the color structure of 5 different colors for the students, and then you have one unified color for the masters. Sometimes you have for masters different color structures, or you can use some kind of stripes, etc. I will talk about, as I said, in the next episode. But let's now focus about on the kids. So you have the basic ones that we use in my club and in the organization that we run the club under, is that we have the white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, green belt, blue belt, brown belt, and then you have the black belt. Now, why is this important? Because the main reason that I see to be true to today, imagine that you are an instructor, a rather good instructor, and you had been invited to teach a group of people that you have never taught before, right? So you are maybe a master in it. You have done this for 25 years, and some good friend of yours asks you to show something to his students. Now you come into the new dojo. You only know the instructor there. He's your friend. He might not be even your direct student. So you do not know what kind of levels he has there, or they have, right, in that club. So what happens is that when you have a corresponding martial art where you can say that, okay, for white belt you know literally almost nothing, for yellow belt, okay, you know how to punch, and you know the basic stances, or you know the basic kicks, or you start to grasp the theory of distance and movement. On orange belt you have some more techniques, on green belt, etc., etc. So you have vastly different knowledge base for the white belt and the brown belt you have there, and of course the black belt. But let's talk about the students. So if you are there as an instructor, now you have to spend your time to get to know the students, and you can ask the instructor, how are they? Yeah, they're good, but what does it mean? Do they know how to kick? Do they know how to punch? How would they react if I started to teach throws? Do you do throws? Are they doing throws on white belt? Do you do these kind of combinations? You cannot prepare the curriculum to teach, basically, because you have to do the first thing that you have to do as an instructor is to find out what kind of things they know. If you come to a gym or dojo or a seminar where belt systems are used, and there are various color schemes, various types of combinations you might have kids belts, you might have student belts, junior belts, whatever floats your boat, but the underlying idea is that once you have the belt system, I can tell as an instructor by your belt what kind of techniques I can choose, and then and only then I can try to to assess, right? So if I have a group of students, green belts and maybe some orange belts there, so I show them something that we usually teach green belts, and I can see, okay, do they cope with it okay? Are they, better? Are they bad? Or do they lack some kind of basic knowledge there that might not have been taught in their system, or they might have not yet fully understood? So you can adjust, let's say, you can shift the gears one up or one down, but you first, when you go into Dami and teach them, you can say, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to teach you. Now, the second reason is that, of course, if you have huge organizations, you have to have standards. And these standards, they usually stem from curriculum. And for example, my organization, the International Kobudo Federation, we have, let's say, rigidly written down what is the basic standard of what we have to teach and what the students have to know based on level. So if you are, for example, learning Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, you have written out, okay, these techniques is something that you have to be able to perform under pressure to get this rank or to be awarded this rank. If you are, as a teacher, teaching them something above or something different, it doesn't matter. It's your class. But when it comes to the ranking, the belt tests themselves, a certain standard should be met or set and met. And when you have seminars that group different schools, studios, dojos, what have you, gyms under the one organization, and you all meet there as friends, I should be able to know that, okay, if I have a green belt student and you have a green belt student, they both know the basic standard together, right? Like they can switch teachers and be able to continue with the core curriculum of the style without any issues. If you teach them something on top, if you teach them more, you might have special classes on grappling, rolling, or sparring, whatever. This is not captured in the basic curriculum. This is not captured within the belt that the student wears. And now, as I said before, the belt itself is a outside visual representation of a certain level. And the levels before the belts were given out in certificates. The levels after the belts are given out with certificates and the belt. The belt is purely visual representation for the teacher, for you, for other students, for other people that come to visit your school, to know what kind of levels the students have, what kind of standards you can expect. You might have, and this is very important, a very talented yellow belt who might be even better at some aspects than your brown belt because he's more athletic, or he's quicker learner, or he has some prior experience, or he is just a natural talent and he can punch better, or he can read the distance better. He's still a yellow belt. At some respect, he's better than the brown belt, but the brown belt is a higher rank because he earned it. And now, what do I mean when I say earn? A lot of people who follow martial arts or have a notion about martial arts, they know that, okay, usually when we are talking about traditional or styles that are using the belt system and they have belt tests, they they conduct it once in a while, and you are awarded the next belt. But this is something that the general population know. But how does it work? Well, how does it look like? How it should look like is a whole different story. If you have a school like I do, what we do is that we have belt tests, 2 sessions, twice a season, let's say, or twice a year. The each session is open for anyone who wishes to undergo the belt test. It doesn't mean that we necessarily rank pupils twice a year. Some clubs do. They have a shorter curriculum, so they can rank them twice a year. They might have more student ranks. We have only 5 student ranks. Some styles, like some traditional karate styles, have 10 different ranks, or 7, or whatever the number is created, whatever the number is. And then you have the frequency of the rankings is based on that, basically. But what we have is that I want to have at least usually twice a year an open slot in our classes. Then that we have belt tests, because the student belt tests, they usually do not take longer than an hour or an hour and a half, so it's manageable within the class, right? But it doesn't work like that. That my students, I just sit there and my students come and I want to try. I have to tell them beforehand, or we have to have this discussion. Are you up to it? Do you meet the standards that are set by the curriculum, or is it a good idea for you to try right now? Why don't you wait? So unless the student is ready, the teacher, the instructor should not push them towards the ranking or the belt test. And if the student doesn't want to do the ranking or belt test, under no circumstances should the instructor make the ranking or the belt a prerequisite for studying. This is what I do in my club. I always tell my students, look, if you want to walk around and train in sweatpants and t-shirt all the time, I'm okay with that. If you want to walk around and train in your budogi and white belt all the time, I'm okay with that. What will happen is that if I have students that want to progress, I will focus on those. You still can train. We will still train together. I will still show you things. We will still spar. We will still, do whatever we do on the training. But sometimes it will happen that I will not put that much focus on you than the other students, because there might be a new instructor coming up from their ranks, and I want to focus on that guy or girl and give them all of my attention that they need in order to show them everything I know, right? But if you are in a school that has mandatory ranking, otherwise, there's the door, get out. It might be good to look out for a new gym, studio, dojo, club, whatever. If you have experience like this, let me know. You can drop me an email at podcast@lifeontatami.sk, or find us on our social media and ping me there. I will be happy to talk to you about this, and to if you feel that okay, but the rankings is important because it moves you forward. Sure, just drop me a message and we can have a discussion. But this is my idea about it, that I do not push people, and I usually find that if you do not push them, it might take them 2-3 years, but then they come to me and say, yeah, I wanna have the next belt, or yeah, I wanna try, and I say, yeah, sure, you are ready for your yellow belt or orange belt. It's okay, whenever we have a next slot for ranking, you're there, no issues. The next issue that is with ranking a belt system is, of course, money. And money is the great divider of many organizations, clubs. It caused a lot of problems, and it's causing a lot of problems, and it will cause a lot of problems because people sometimes do not know what kind of money they ask for for the ranking. Why they ask it? Because this is something that was done before them, to them by their masters, by their instructors, by their teachers, by their organization, and they just blindly follow the same scheme, basically. Now, what's the problem with this? I have no issue with paying for my belt test, and by paying for my belt test, I do not mean that I come somewhere to my instructor or to the commission that conducts the belt test, and I show them to the commission what I know, and I do not come there and give the money right away. Like, okay, yeah, this is my money, and now we can try. It works in that way that I, as an instructor, I'm still being instructed by my teachers, and when they feel that I'm ready for the next step, the next rank, next belt, we have a discussion, of course, we train, and then they say, yeah, sure, you are ready, just practice more, be focused, and that's it. Basically, I've had countless of rankings and belt tests in my life, and I know what kind of pressure it can be. So if they tell you with confidence that yeah, you are up to it, then the worst thing that can happen is that you do poorly. You meet the standards, but you are not happy with yourself, or your teacher is not happy with you. But that's the worst thing that can happen. It never should be about yeah, come and try. Show me what you got, but first give me the money. And then when you fail, yeah, the money is mine. You paid for the try. I always pay for my certificate. I always pay for the organization recognizes my rank, and it officially recognizes my rank within that particular organization. I have teaching license. I have other certification given out with the organization. I am their representative for my country. Other things, and I only pay for the belts, and I pay my dues to the federation once a year, and that is very good in structure in a way how to prohibit overspending on belts and rankings, because these kind of things, they generate instant income. If you have a club of 10 or 15 students and they have ranking, and you let them pay you 25 a piece, right? So at the end of the day, you end up with almost 400, right? For 15 students, let's say. Now, or you can have whatever number you have. Many organizations, they pay these dues forward in some way, meaning that an instructor pays a certain amount for each and every student that he has given belt to. In the International Kobudo Federation, the organization that I train under, every dollar, euro, whatever currency you use, that is paid for the belt test stays within that particular club. Only those belt tests that are for black belts that are conducted by the highest authority within the IKF is being paid to that authority. But otherwise it all stays in the club, because it is a great financial boost once or twice a year to have, if you have 15-20 students and you ask them to pay $50 per belt test, then you have a lot of income that is purely for you. You do not have to pay it forward to anyone else. You might use it to cover some expenses. You might use it in order to buy new equipment. You might use it for yourself. It doesn't matter. It should be for the club. It should be for the benefit of the club and benefit of its pupils. But you cannot control all the time. But how to tell what's the good price for a belt? Well, it depends. If I'm totally honest, I would love to have price-free rankings in my club, meaning that I could do what I do and give out the certification that is being certified by the federation, and still ask really nothing out of my students. But what we do is that I ask them, for a sum, and out of that money, I provide for them the new. For example, if we are talking about Kabuto, a weapon system, it works like that. Each belt you take up a different weapon, or you take up another weapon or something like that. So what I do is once you graduate the rank, and I give you the certification, and you pay for the certification, you pay also for the next weapon that I provide to you, the next equipment that you need to train. And I do not want to brag, but I do it this way. Other clubs do it in different styles, different ways, doesn't matter. What's the appropriate price? It should be the lower you rank, the lower you pay. Sometimes I have a set pay for every student rank that I can preside and give out. So, but as I said, we have this, like, within the payment that there are covered some expenses for you in order to proceed with your training. But I know that in some karate schools and organizations, the lower the rank, the lower the money. It is because when you start, you usually are a kid, you don't have that much money, and parents do not want to invest 50 euros for yellow belt, which you will not take up after 2 months later. So whatever. So if you find that someone asks from you for a student ranking a horrible amount of money, tens, hundreds, you just walk away because it's not worth it, basically. You are still, in the eyes of every other martial artist, a yellow belt. A yellow belt that costs you nothing is the same level as a yellow belt that costs you 200. And with this, we come to the worst thing that ever happened to martial arts so far, and that is the greed. Greed of clubs, instructors, organizations. There are some, and there are many as well, who I'll start with the some. There are some who blatantly scam you, and there are many who shake you for your money. With the shaking, well, it can happen that they cover some expenses that you don't see, or they rake up some debt, or they just found that, okay, people will pay me 30-50 bucks ranking, so I let them. It's good for the club, and we put the money back in. But with the some that are outrightly scamming you, I will tell you this: it's much easier, cheaper, and time saving if you go online and buy yourself a black belt, like the actual thing, and download a trial version of Photoshop, do yourself a certification. It has the same value for me as it has if you come to someone and he tells you, if you pay me 300, I'll make you a black belt. It's only about money, nothing else. There is no substance. There are those who exploit their students, and these are much harder to catch because they might be legitimate martial artists. They might know what they're doing. They might be really good at what they're doing, and then they come to you and say, you wanna have a black belt or the next rank. You have to pay me your dues, and they come up with several things that you have to pay, several prerequisites that you have to meet and fulfill before you can go and have the black and have the ranking, the belt is awarded, and then you pay for the belt. And the belt itself is not as expensive as those prerequisites were, so you had been raked for your money. As I said before, I have in my club the only prerequisite that you have to have done before you are admitted to the ranking. You have to be present on the training. You have to train. If you have some kind of issues at home, at work, at school, you cannot attend all the classes, but you still make up for the time and train at home, and I can see it and I can see the progress. Great. If you are able to perform the basic standards at a certain expected level, and I'm expecting much from you as my student, above the standard, but if you meet the standard, then yes, you are awarded the rank because you fulfilled what was required in order to get the rank. And of course, you have to want it. If someone warrants ranking by attendance, okay, what does it mean? Does it mean that once you have a perfect attendance you receive your belt, or you have to have a certain attendance in order to be admitted to a belt test? Does a test comprise of showing certain number of techniques or showing certain ways how to defeat your opponent? Does it comprise of forms, sparring, or physical activity, or some kind of push-ups, sit-ups, whatever? And does it is it transparently known by your pupils or by the school that this is the requirement that we have? These are all the questions that you should be asking yourself. If you are awarded ranks based on your attendance, real ranks, right? Like with certification that says, now you are third Q, green belt, whatever in karate, and you just had a perfect attendance because you found a school that matches your timetable or your schedule. This is not good. You should be made to prove that you are up to it. And the thing is that once you are proving it, you are stressing yourself, you're putting yourself under pressure, and you are showing your reactions under pressure. And if you fumble, if you forget something because stress doesn't, makes you forget things, you cannot remember a form correctly or a sequence or something. The instructors who usually are partaking in the grading, they know you as a student, so they know what's your level, they know how you behave, they know how you react, and they know what kind of progress you made. And this is just a milestone checking, did we did good, right? So is it okay, the style that you are learning? Is it okay the way that we are teaching you? Is it okay for you to remember whatever reason it might be? Now with the belting systems, there is a lot of also a pushback, like it's outdated. You do not have to have a visual representation because you can see how good someone is. I have covered this already a little bit, and I covered this in a way that but imagine that you are an instructor to 100 people. It's good to know what kind of levels they are. Now there are other arguments like no you don't have to, because you have a group and that group it's progressing steadily together because they've started together and now they are training together, so they have more or less the same skill. True, but not true. True, why? Because yes, if you have a homogeneous group that is being together ever since it started, great. Yes, they had been through same experience, they had been through more or less the same training, so their level should be at the same level, at the same rank. So yeah, sure. But if you have newcomers into that group, or someone leaves, or the group shifts, or you had joined two groups because of time constraints, whatever reason, you are not having homogeneous group anymore because you have different people of different levels in there. Some of the instructors and coaches for kickboxing, Muay Thai, other stand-up fighting, not like the martial art, but more of the fighting part, the sport part. They have different groups of people that they train. They have, in Slovakia, we have it like you have Group C, Group B, and Group A. Group C is a group of people who come to your training to have fun. They want to lose weight. They do not want to do much of a sparring. They will never fight amateur league or professionally because it's not their calling, not yet anyway. You have their absolute newbies who never fought in their life, who have zero background in martial arts, and you teach them a certain way. And you have these groups who are more or less small, and you have this like, this is my class C. Then you have the group B, and in the group B there are people who want to fight, and they attend fights, or they help others prepare to fight. So they spar more, they have more of conditioning, they have more of physical preparation, they might attend amateur fights, but in the end this is not their livelihood, right? So they have their own jobs, might be whatever. They just do this because it's their hobby and they like, and they want to test themselves in a ring, so they do the amateur stuff, or they help other people prepare, so they have more of a rigid sparring sessions, whatever. And then you have the A class or the A group. Those are the professionals. This is the smallest group. They train all day. They train every day. They train and prepare for paid fights, paid job. It's their livelihood. And this kind of division is very similar when we are talking about traditional martial artists. Yes, we usually do not have matches or competitions, fighting competitions, because we do a different style of martial art. We do not compete. We train differently, but you have the largest group that you have is usually the students of lower ranks. Then you have a group of people that is a smaller group of people of higher student ranks, or green, blue, brown. And then you have the smallest group of the master ranks of black belts. So it is parallel to the understanding of division of people, and then you can have special classes for black belts, special classes for higher students, juniors, white belts, doesn't matter. You have this divided, and this division comes naturally when you have newcomers or beginners, when you have intermediate classes, when you have expert classes that have been with you for years and years. It is that you naturally divide people based on their ability and rank. It doesn't matter that you do not use an outside representation of the rank, like a belt. You might use different colors of shirts. You can use different names for the students. You can call someone a grasshopper, someone a snake, someone a king cobra, it doesn't matter. You might use stripes and stars and whatever, some kind of military-like style of awarding rank, doesn't really matter. It's an outside representation of a standardized level of skill, and that standardized level of skill is something that you expect out of that particular student. So when you award them the rank, it doesn't have to be through a belt test. It can be at the end of a session or at the end of the season, at the end of a class, that you can see that, yeah, you've made a lot, the most progress out of the group. I award you the next rank. I award you the right to wear this green t-shirt, or I award you this yellow and pink socks, doesn't matter. You as an instructor guide people through different stages and through different levels because you want them to feel that they have progressed, and you give them this sense of progress. And what usually happens in the end is that you end up with certificates and some kind of ranks in the end anyway, especially when we are talking about instructors. So if you have a modern system that took off very well, and you had students, and now the students, they are very good and they want to open up their own gyms in different parts of the country or city or whatever, and you want to give them, something that you want to back them up, that yes, this is, I give you my degree that you are a good martial artist or a good representative of my style. And this is what happens with the traditional and modern as well. It's just the form that changes. It's just a form. If we are talking about different leagues that you can play in or fight in, you have different organizations. Some are better, some are semi-professional, some are more amateur, and you then go in those ranks up and up and up until you end up in K1, or until you end up in UFC, or until you end up in whatever other organization might be at the top at the time. You just progress, and those belts that you win, you are a champion, you have been crowned among people that you have the highest skill. You have been awarded it not through the belt test but through fights, point systems, whatever. It's just metaphor overly representing the idea behind that was originally created even before belts were introduced. As I said before, in Japan, before the belts were introduced, they had a ranking system when they issued certification, so it was already there. And it is the same thing that if you have a small club and you have the most promising student, your prodigy, and then you hand over your belt to that, or your dojo to that kid, or your gym, and now he's the boss. So it's working the same way. It has just various degrees of outside representation, visual representation, various degrees of understandability among people across the world. Belts are universal. Belts are being used also in business, right? So you have this project management methodology, which is called Lean Six Sigma. Doesn't matter. And you have others as well, but they use this, or I know that they use this for sure. Is that they use belting system. The original one was white, yellow, green, and black, and master black. So they have adapted martial arts style of ranking because it represents something. It represents progress. It represents strength. It represents mastery of skill. So as I said before, I will talk about the master belts, the kurobi, the black belts, in the next episode, and I will also mention the infamous, in Slovakia at least, black belt syndrome, what it is and how it manifests, and because even after you cross a certain point in life and you become a master, quote unquote a master, you still have a lot of milestones ahead of you, a lot of miles to walk on your path to better yourself. But in the end, yes, I think that belts and belting systems and ranking systems still have place in this world and will have a certain form one way or another always. And when we're talking about martial arts, for sure, but also in other, if you have people doing various skills, in order to compare them, you have beginner and master. So this kind of thing, they will always be here, embedded, whatever style, whatever form it may take. And I would like to say at the end one more thing, and that's, if you have an instructor that is forcing you to do belt tests, do rankings, pay them, don't. Just get up and leave. I know it's very hard to leave a place like this, especially if you like it there, but there's raking you for money, and it's not good, and it stinks of scam. So think about it. You should never be forced to do ranking or belt test. You should never be made to do it. You should never have to pay in beforehand in order to be admitted to the belt test. And you should always pay only for the certification, if necessary, then to only pay for the certification of the next belt, so it is recognized outside and within your organization if you are interested in things like that. But never ever pay before, and never ever pay in order to be admitted. It should always be that you are prepared, and your instructor or the one that is presiding over the ranking knows you, and they allow you to participate, and they express their goodwill and they express their faith in you that you are up to this. So you never should be paying for a try to do something. If you are not ready, you should not be admitted in the first place. Okay, so keep this in mind. I know that I sometimes tend to ramble, so thank you for listening, and see you next time at our next episode about black belts. So that was it for today's episode. Thank you for listening to us, and if you like what you are hearing, let us know through our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube or Twitter, or directly to our email podcast@lifeontatami.sk. Thank you for subscriptions, feedback, and see you next time.